So it's great to see you all. We're just here for our October Spirit Space gathering. And today, what I want to talk about is really evolving mediumship into something that is a bit more sophisticated than sort of the old school way of working with mediumship, and how we can evolve as mediums, and how mediumship can evolve as well. Because we know that the spirit world has infinite capacity, infinite potential. And the only reason that our mediumship is sort of small is because we think that it needs to be small. And I think what we need to do is start to understand just really how expansive and how wide and what potential there is in mediumship. Because once you're aware of that, you'll reach for that, you know. So I feel like that's really important. So we had about 140 people register for this. Obviously, people are in different time zones, so not everybody will be coming live. So I'm going to record it to send to everybody afterwards. But the thing about that is I have about 200 questions. So obviously, I'm not going to go through all the questions, but I have kind of scanned them all and kind of grouped them together, and more or less, most of the questions are more or less around similar themes. So we'll address some of those as we go. So while we'll get going just now, but while we're waiting, does everyone just want to just pop? You should be able to chat to everyone, not just to me. So if you want to just pop in, hello, and where you're from, just introduce yourself to everyone in the room, because I know quite a few familiar faces, but there are also quite a new faces. So that would be nice for everyone to meet. So everyone able to chat to everyone? Yes, perfect. All right, lovely. So we've got 2 people from Tucson. How about that? Maybe you can go hang out. Rhode Island, New York City. Hello, Victoria. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Arizona. Mary J. Hello, Steph from the UK. I was just in the UK. Actually, just got back the other day. Wiltshire in the United Kingdom. I have no idea where Wiltshire is. Up north, is it? Don't know. India. Oh, Priya's here from India. Hello, Priya. Minneapolis, Seattle. Jenny from Scotland. I keep saying I have to get up to Edinburgh to the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre in person, and I keep underestimating how far it actually is. Seattle, England, another person from England, another person from Connecticut. Connecticut, it's a small state. You could probably meet up. New Jersey, British Columbia, and Colorado. So that's a nice range of people as we go forward. So I will send out an LA. Is it early? Is it early in LA? No, it's 9 o'clock. It's not that early. So brilliant. So welcome everybody. So just to give you an idea of how I want to kind of approach our talk tonight, because we do have quite a lot of ground to cover in just our short little gathering. So what I do want to do is just sort of talk first about how mediumship can evolve, how we can think about mediumship, how we can live as mediums, really what we need to do to be able to evolve mediumship, which is more than sitting in a circle and trying to snatch at bits of evidence. I'll talk a little bit about psychic versus mediumship. I got loads of questions about better connections, getting bits of info, how can I deal with doubt, how can I deal with confidence. So probably a bunch of you have had the same questions, because loads of those came in. And then I'm seeing here quite a lot of questions, people asking about trance. And so this, obviously, we're talking about advanced mediumship techniques today and advanced evidential mediumship. But the good news is that I have decided to add my 4-week trance course starting in the middle of November. So if anyone's actually really interested in working with trance, we've been able to squeeze that in. Mostly because, as some of you know, my PhD was awarded on yesterday, and that has freed up, thank God, freed up my days, no end. So I thought, oh, well, since everyone's asking about trance, why not? I have time now, we'll add a trance course. So that's a great, interesting trance course on the website already. So if you want, you can check that out later. So I'm not going to answer any trance questions in this class, because we've so much to cover anyway. All right. A few people asked questions about starting to work with the public, opening up businesses. We're not going to get into that really here because it's really beyond the scope of what this is about. What I would say very briefly on that is, and I think Mary James, you asked me this question before, I believe, how do you know you're ready to work with the public? And what I would say is, first of all, when it comes to evidential mediumship, you need to be able to make a contact accurately, get enough accurate information, place the contact be recognizable, and to be able to do that multiple times. So I would say if you can do that 3-4 times in a row in short little mini readings, you know that you're in the power well enough. Because in a private sitting, for example, multiple communicators will come in. So you need to work so that you have the power to be able to work with multiple people over time. But another key part to that is you want to make sure that you are confident in your mediumship, that you have a good self-care practice going on, because as I've said, and most of you have taken classes with me before, and I say this over and over again, the hardest part of this job is dealing with the living, believe me. And so you need to be able to work with people. Like we think, oh, we're doing this great sort of sacred work to help people who are in pain and, you know, and offer something back and on. But that's all very well. But sometimes the grieving are not coming to you in sorrow or sadness, and you can sort of give them beautiful messages and they can go away radiating joy, right? Sometimes they come at you extremely angry and very critical, and they will lash out at you because they are grieving and they're in pain. And you need to make sure that that is not going to affect you, or if it does, you can shake that off and come back into a good, harmonious place quite quickly. So bear that in mind as well. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about that. In terms of sort of getting yourself out there, I would say start with church service, spiritualist church services, or student demonstrations. We'll have some of those, and I'll talk about that later, going on sort of student demonstrations. You're actually working more of a public environment without the pressure of taking money from people, because as soon as you take money from people, that ups the game completely, you know. So I would say make sure that you've got a lot of that practice in, and know that, because I mean, even today, and myself and other mediums I know have been doing this for donkey's years, you know, I can get a client and it just really, just so much negativity can come at you. And then you've got to be able to shake that off in 15 minutes for your next client. So you want to be able to make sure you have a good self-care practice in place. All right. So if I'll say that, and then after that, I would say just do services and DEMs and mini readings, little psychic fairs, perhaps, if you can find a good one, just to get a lot of practice to working with non-mediums outside classes, just so that you can get used to how people respond. You know, because also some people come along, and I'm not going to get into this here because some of you have heard me talk about this in class. Some people come along with their arms closed like that, and they're like, prove it, convince me, you know. And what I will say is, don't bother. You know, your job is not to convince the living. Your job is to give voice to the discarnate. Your job is to give voice to the spirit world, because they will have you jumping through hoops, doing all sorts of psychic tricks and all sorts of things if you let it. So you have to remember that your responsibility is to give voice to the spirit. So you're not there to prove anything. You can never prove this to anybody anyway. If somebody doesn't want to have it proven to them, they won't, right? So don't focus on that. Don't get caught in that. Drive you up the walls, all right? All right, so I'll leave that at that. All right. So what I want to talk about really is the power of the spirit. So, you know, there has been this way, you know, most of you know, I've been a sort of a practicing spiritualist. I trained in the spiritualist tradition and from the college, and, you know, got all my certifications and awards from the SNU. So back in the late 1800s, and sad to say, in a lot of cases, mediumship hasn't advanced since then, but in the late 1800s, the spiritualists were free thinkers, innovative thinkers. You know, they were coming out and doing all these experiments, and it was just this really exciting time for spiritualists. But we have fallen into, I say we, I'm just saying we, arbitrarily we, have mediumship, I'll say, has kind of fallen into this rote. We make a contact, we get evidence, we give a relationship, we give a job, we give a whatever, how they passed, and we have this list of criteria. The old, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, it's called the CERT method of teaching mediumship, where you are given, I mean, when I started out, you walk into a class and they'd have a flip chart, check boxes, check, 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 check. And I'm like, you know, yeah, like I'm sure that when I die and I come back to my loved ones, all I'm going to want to do is check somebody else's check boxes, right? Like, let's really think about this, you know? So the way I'm teaching mediumship, and I'll come to this again later when we talk about the announcements, because I want you to just go through some of these ideas. We'll pop through a few of your questions, although most of the questions that are relevant to this will be incorporated into the talk as I go. I have a couple of announcements. We'll do a short little practice at the end. And then if any of you in a master class that has a question, because nobody really put questions in the things, we'll do, if any of you have specific questions about a specific masterclass that you're registered for, I'll address those at the very end when we're done. All right. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. So what I really would love you to think about, first off, is the psychic versus the medium. Right? And there's a number of reasons for this. One is psychism is not mediumship. And there have been some questions there about people where I can see from the question they're clearly getting psychic information, right? And can't tell whether it's psychic or mediumship. So it's hard to, that just takes really a lot of practice, and working with the different way. The energy feels slightly different when you're working with a discarnate person versus an incarnate person, but you can get vast amount of information from reading the aura of the person in front of you. So you want to be very careful. So one tip I would give you for that is if you're working with somebody, sort of look past them over their shoulders. They don't think you're ignoring them, but you're not actually looking at them. So you don't fall into the danger of reading their expressions. You know, you say something, their face light up, and your ego instinctively goes, oh yes, I've done so, you know, approval. And they keep on that, right? Because the ego is not your friend in mediumship. And so what I would say is I'd like to just talk just briefly about psychic versus mediumship. Anybody can tell you 20 spot-on facts about a loved one in the spirit world without ever connecting to them, simply by reading your aura. And I'm not going to name any names or any organizations, but there are some organizations that assess mediumship, and I've watched them do it, and they're actually assessing them on the criteria to assess a psychic, right? So if you are working psychically, you're going to pick up loads of facts, but you won't really, and then you really just have to do this over and over and over again. And when we do the advanced techniques course, I know some of you are doing, we'll be going over this as well. You have to work with the subtle shifts in the energy and get very, very familiar to how that mediumship feels for you, because it's going to be different, just slightly different for everybody, right? We all end up picking up some psychic information, but ethically, we need to be able to know when we've done that. So you can say to your person, you know, well, you know, I feel like you should dump the husband, you know, so you're not saying, I mean, believe me, and this is actually, I'm telling you this from experience. Somebody's not going, oh, your dad's here and he's like, thinks you should just dump the husband, right? Right. Now, if you go, well, I feel I'm not getting a good vibe from my husband, I don't think you should stay with him. The person will put a whole hell of a lot more, that's a bit of, you know, I'm exaggerating obviously for effect. The person will put a whole heap load of more weight on it if the father says it versus if the psychic says it. So you need to know always ethically, we have an ethical responsibility to know what we're saying, who it's coming from. And that just takes practice, right? So this is really, really taking evidence up to another level where we can learn, and it is possible to learn the subtle shifts and changes in the energy that will tell you, you'll know, I don't know if that's from your dad or not. And even if you can just say that, at least you're being ethical. I'm really not sure if I got this from your dad or if I'm just getting it, but then you leave it with them to decide what they want to do, right? Because people come to you thinking, because you're a medium, you have a power greater than them. So you need to be very careful with that, you know. The other thing I would say is that all mediums are psychic because all mediums need the psychic faculties for mediumship, right? Not all psychics are mediums. And in this day and age, people go around calling themselves psychic mediums, and they are actually psychics. Right? I never use the word psychic, because it's redundant. You know, if you're a medium, you're already psychic. I think a lot of people do it just because it's, you know, the public expectation. I'm of the school, and a lot of you have heard this already, that because this is an unregulated field, the onus is on us to educate the public, right? We need to be able to tell the public the difference between one and the other, so that when you've got somebody in a sitting and you're sitting there with them and they come along and they say, oh, well, tell me what I'm holding in my hand, and then I'll believe you're talking to my wife. And you're like, a psychic can tell you that's got nothing to do with your wife, right? You need to have that knowledge, that experience, and that strength to be able to hold and take care of your own mediumship and then ethically work with the others, right? So I never use the word psychic. What I would recommend to any of you who work as psychics, now I know some psychics who are amazing psychics. And they're not mediums, but they're amazing psychics. And I know a lot of mediums who are absolutely terrible psychics. They have the psychic abilities needed for mediumship. So one is not prerequisite upon the other. You know what I mean? You can be great at one and terrible at the other. I personally hate psychic. I don't even do psychic reading. I don't even offer them. You couldn't even come to me and you couldn't pay me to do a psychic reading. Can't stand doing them, And so, but I know some people are marvelous, and it's a very, very valuable skill, but we need to know the difference within our own mediumship, right? So one thing I would suggest to you, the words we use to speak to ourselves are critical in our mediumship. So what we use to tell ourselves, and any of you who've taken classes with me know this, I feel very strongly that we don't go around calling ourselves psychic mediums, right? Now, I have a friend who's come up with a great solution. She calls herself a psychic and medium. So it's psychic ampersand medium. And that immediately says, I'm a psychic and a medium. But there is a difference, acknowledges there is a difference between the two of them. So I would really encourage you. I think that's a really good solution to the terminology there. The other thing too is that in mediumship, if we're doing mediumship, cannot give you a reading. So people say, oh, can I book a reading with a medium? And I'm going to ask all of you to tell me, you type in the chat if you want, if somebody comes to sit with you for a sitting, I call them sittings because that's what they're called in college, they come to you for sitting and you get a sense of their dad coming in. Right now, it's you and the dad and your client, What are you reading? So if your dad wasn't in the spirit world and you're sitting at a table with your pal and her dad comes in and sits with you and the three of you are having a conversation, what are you reading? Let me check the things. No answers. So psychics do readings because when psychics are reading, they're either using divination tools, or they're using cards, or they're reading the aura, or they're reading the person's energy, right? That's reading. When you're mediating a conversation with the discarnate spirit, how are you reading them? You're not. You are open to receiving information and details that they're sharing with you so you can share with somebody else. You're having a conversation. You're not reading the dad's energy because you're never, ever, ever reading in mediumship. Because think of it again. If the father is sitting here in his boots at the kitchen table, would you say, if it was you and two of your friends sitting around the table, would you say you're reading one or the other? You're not. You're having a conversation. Do you see the difference? Mediumship is a conversation. You are there mediating a conversation between a person here in incarnate form and a person there in discarnate form, which is why it's called sitting, because we are sitting with the spirit. We are sitting with this spirit and that spirit, and we are all sitting together having a conversation. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is because when you program your own mind, what you tell yourself will be reflected in your mediumship, right? How you live and move to the world will be reflected in your mediumship. So if you're telling yourself that you're reading somebody, what chances are what you're going to be doing is actually reading the person in front of you, because in your mind, you're perceiving this as a reading. Does that make sense to you all? And so what I would ask you to do is to always use, like, so I never use the word reading. I don't let people in my classes use the word reading because it's reinforcing a concept that has no place in mediumship. So any of you know Simon James up in Vancouver? Somebody here from Columbia. Simon James goes off as not when people start calling mediumship readings, you know. But like, it's important. It might sound, it's just a word. Words have power. All right. So we sit with the spirit and mediate conversations, and that will help you, because the minute you start thinking I'm doing a reading, you will default to snatching bits of evidence, like on the checkbox, the checklist on your flip chart. We want to be able to move into a state of embodiment and a state of story. And to do that, we need to understand we are not reading somebody, we are blending with them, we are embodying them, we are sharing and giving voice to their story. And we need to start thinking like that to be able to start that to naturally flow into your mediumship, right? Because I'm all these questions here. How can I get names? How can I get this? How can I get that? The minute you start going, how can I get, what you're doing, reaching out with your mind to try to snatch stuff, right? If you are fully present with the power of the spirit, if you're fully present in that, that information, whatever that person decides to share with you, will come to you. And the evidence that is needed, the details that are needed for them to be recognized by their loved one, will naturally flow into their story. So I'm just going, you know, if you meet a buddy of yours or whatever, do you sit there and go, let me tell, all right, so I was born here and I did this and I did this. You don't, right? You just start talking. Everything we do in life is stories. Every single little tiny thing we do, every single little tiny thing we say is a story. I would ask you to pay attention to that, because how you move through the world and how you respond and what you pay attention to in the world will be reflected in your mediumship. And this is how we evolve mediumship beyond trying to snatch at evidence into something much richer, much bigger, and much more authentic and honest and accurate than the old school way of learning mediumship, right? So most of you know I've practiced Zen for 20-something years, and I'm a writer, and I'm Irish. And I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I was complaining because he was an artist and I'm a writer, and he was like, in Ireland, everybody, you know, it's all about the stories. The musicians are telling stories, the writers are telling stories, down the pub, they're telling stories. Irish people naturally are storytellers, comes very naturally. So this artist friend of mine was complaining because they don't really get the same look in that storytellers get. But you are storytellers. I would ask you to pay attention to everything you say, because the more you pay attention to what you're doing in your physical life, the more those pathways and that awareness is getting embedded into the mind. So it makes a space for all of the same information to naturally flow in your mediumship, right? So a story, you know, you can say, oh, well, you know, there was a woman, just so for example, there was a woman on the bus yesterday. Now, there's a big problem in Ireland at the moment because we've got like so many immigrants, there's no houses for anybody, right? Because the government is letting more people than could be accommodated. So people, you know, anti-immigrant things going on everywhere, but, you know, people getting bent out of shape. But I'm sitting on the bus yesterday, and this woman is talking to some Muslim fella. She must have been about 60. She was talking to this Muslim fella beside her on the bus, and his English wasn't that good, but she was persisting in talking to him. And then he got off the bus, and I sat down. She looks at me and she goes, "Oh, where are you from?" And I said, "Around the corner." She goes, "Oh, okay." And then she went off to talk to somebody else who was more foreign than me, right? And so she talked to some other woman who was Polish or something. But she was just this, it's an interesting little story, this woman. Do you see what I mean? That's just me telling you an incident on the bus, but even that little thing is a story. But even in that, what does that tell you? There's so much more to that story than the words I've just given you. Because there was something in this woman's willingness and desire to welcome immigrants when there has been protests. There was something in her willingness and her desire to be open to learning about other cultures. So you see, I mean, there's more depth to that story than just the words I've used, because there is the presence of that woman, there is her intention, there is her emotions, there is her character. All of that is there present. That is present in every story, and every single thing we do is a story. So every single mediumship sitting you do is a story, that's being told to you by a character who has had a rich and long, hopefully, life with so much to tell. And what are we doing? Tell me your relationship, tell me the color of your car, tell me what your job was, tell me how you died. You know, talk about reducing people to the most boring factors. Do you know? So what I would say is that more you can bring these sorts of thoughts into your daily life. So what I would do is I would go around and I would remember and say to yourself over and over again, I even wrote this down to make sure I said it to you today, was we are telling stories. You have to practice telling stories. So go out after this session and pay attention to all the conversations that you're having, because we just have conversations, we're just throwing them away. But in every single exchange you have with somebody, there is a story and there are characters and there are reactions and there are feelings. And sometimes there are triggers that have got nothing to do with the story. There is so much in it, right? So what I would ask all of you to do in your normal day-to-day affairs, because this will actually start to, you'll find this reflecting in your mediumship, because then you won't need to be saying to me, how do I get names? How do I get passing conditions? How do I get this? Because you will have laid the pathways and the understanding of what a story is to receive it from that person. Because believe me, nobody's coming back just to give you 10 facts that the medium wants. They're coming because they want to say what they want to say to their loved one, not what you want them to say. And so we need to get out of our way and be open and be present and understand and have embedded in our own minds and psychics and our own being the principles of the story. And then all of these questions about how do I get and how do I do become a moot, because this person will tell you, and the evidence and the details will be better because they will be more authentic, they will be more accurate, they will be more unique to that person. When we get out of the way and just open our hearts, open our minds, open everything to just embodying the person. A friend of mine's an acting teacher and she uses the same language for acting. And I'm like, God, I'm always saying to her, that's the same principles you're teaching these people in acting that I'm trying to teach in mediumship. How do you get you out of the way to literally embody the person, to allow them to embody you so that you are just open to the flow of their story? Right? That makes mediumship so much more enjoyable, so much more interesting, even for the medium. Because, most of you come to mediumship, God, I hope they can understand. I'm going to get like 3-4 details, hope somebody understands it. And then somebody puts the hand up and you go, oh, thank God, somebody understood it, somebody recognized it. Right? And it's just like all this anxiety. Oh, maybe I won't get it. This is like, who cares? You're there, your body, you get a feeling of somebody, you start getting bits of a story, you just start telling the story. Somebody doesn't like the story, so what? It doesn't matter to you, it only matters to the loved one. That's what matters. Okay? So what I would say is a good way to practice this is to really go out and be attentive to your stories. Just remember, every time you speak, you're telling a story. It can be tiny. So a really good example I use in my writing classes is short, the 6-word story. Do you ever hear of this? To write a story in 6 words. So this is a bit apocryphal because it said that Hemingway wrote this, but I don't know if Hemingway did. But the story was, for sale, baby shoes never worn. Now, is that amazing? 6 words, and look at that story. I mean, you can feel the mother, the pain, the baby, the child, you can feel the whole thing, right? So what I'm saying is 6 words can be a story, You can go out and say to your partner, your kids, whatever, did you pick up so-and-so thing? And they didn't. That's a story. You are constantly telling stories. You are constantly hearing stories. Pay attention to them, right? Practice telling stories. Basically, practicing telling stories means paying attention to what you're talking about, paying attention to the story you're talking about. And you do that over and over and over again until it becomes a natural way of being in your life. It will become a natural way of being in your mediumship. Right? In terms of embodiment, I would say, pay attention to your own body. Pay attention to, do you ever go, you're going on about your day and somebody says something, meh, you know, pay attention. There's sort of a little bit of somatic experiencing probably would be a handy thing to look into as well. Where you actually have to, every time you have an emotional reaction, one, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, where are you feeling it? Where is it being embodied? Get used to being able to recognize the nuances of feeling and emotions, where they are in your own body, will help you embody somebody else's feelings and emotions over and over and over again until it becomes a natural, automatic way of being. And then it becomes natural and automatic in your mediumship. All right. And what happens? You come to your mediumship curious. Oh, I've got this new character, this new story. I can't wait to hear it, right? Rather than, God, I hope they tell me what the relationship is and what age they were and how they died and all the rest of it. You know, you get out of the way and they tell you, and so much more interesting stuff can come out of it because they've had an interesting life. So get out of the way. Let them tell their interesting life story. All right. Makes sense? Everybody's going, it's like, you know, the holy grail, I need to get a name or I need to get a passing condition, I need to go to, who cares? You know, maybe the person doesn't want to talk about their passing condition. And you're trying to shake it out, you're trying to shake him out of a tree. Give me your passing condition. Maybe might not even be relevant. The person sitting in front of you might even want to hear it. What's going on there is that the medium wants to know. Not up to you. Who cares what you think, what you want to know? You just want to give voice. Our job, medium, mediate. Right. That's what it means. No, the SNU, Tricia said, the SNU, I don't teach that way. It's an old school way of teaching. They don't teach like that anymore. And Victoria, you're asking me, you know, we can't force anyone to come through. Again, we can't go into the spirit world, start shaking people out of trees or dragging them out by the hair and saying, you've got to talk to this loved one. You can make your best effort to do that. Sometime in a sitting, you know, the first person that pops in is not necessarily the primary person that the sitter wanted, but and some, you know, I will sometimes, if I really don't get a very strong presence of that primary communicator, I may ask for a first name only and see if I can just focus there to draw them in. Usually works. Usually you will find them, but you know, you can't force that, because they, in their wisdom, know who needs to come and what needs to be said and what needs to be heard. And sometimes somebody will come, the person doesn't want to hear from them at all. Got your dad here. I don't want nothing to do with him. Okay, you got to let him go, right? So that's not up to us. Again, just remember, we are just mediating conversation. We are just offering our services to mediate conversations for other people, you know. Another small little tiny thing before we move on is the idea of mediumship as a gift. You know, a gifted medium is somebody who's done a lot of work on their mediumship. The same way as a gifted pianist is somebody who's always got a gift, but also done an awful lot of work to learn how to play the piano. You know, the gift in and of itself doesn't mean anything. Everything is a gift. And the reason I just say that is because, you know, it sort of feels like, oh, we've got something special going on. Everybody's got something special going on, whatever that may be. How we use it, how we are committed to it, how we are devoted to it, how ethically and responsibly we want to develop that. That's what makes us, you know, gifted. The same way as a gifted pianist has put thousands of hours into playing the piano. Right. So I think we kind of need to get over ourselves. Oh, I'm gifted. Yes, so is everyone. In something or other. What matters is your commitment, your authenticity, your ethics, and your devotion and your willingness to be of service. That's what matters. All right. Sorry if anybody had delusions of gifted grandeur there, but you know, it is what it is. I say, I'm throwing myself into that as well. So, so just please do, you know, try to go through life and, you know, embodying the story, embodying character like that. Pay attention to people's characters. This is another thing. You'll be amazed how much information is not shared with you verbally in conversations. This is another really good thing to be mindful of. Pay attention to what's not being said in conversations. That will really help deepen your mediumship, because you'll naturally start to pick up all these nuances. you know. So you're not going, oh, they showed me orange, oh, zip, mind is on the fritz, what does orange mean, what does orange mean? You don't need to, because it'll just feel the way it's supposed to feel, because you've trained yourself to recognize and to be receptive to nuance. All right. Makes sense? If I burst anybody's bubbles, I think I've made it easier. Isn't this it makes it easier, right? Yeah. So all of that. So, you know, there are people who ask me, how can I develop clairsentience, all these sorts of things. What I would say is that I actually have already answered a lot of these sort of questions that I've already answered in other sessions or in the Q&A that we've done before. So I would say there's a playlist of questions I've already answered. A lot of them are, how do I know if it's me or is it the spirit? That comes up a lot. Again, if you do the things I'm talking about, that question becomes moot, right? But if you are struggling with that, I've answered those sorts of questions in the Q&A. It's in the responses in the spirit space on the website. Also, there are on my Instagram and Facebook accounts, there are these like little things that got put up about ways, little practices you can do to develop clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance. So if you're on my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see those pop up. Just go back. So a lot of these questions I don't want to go over because they're very sort of elementary questions and we've done them before. And this really, we're trying to focus on more advanced techniques in this session today. So you could kind of go back through the archives and find a lot of other there's lots of questions in the Q&A. Right, so a couple of things. Again, so it's like, you know, things like questions I'm asking, what do I do when the communication is foggy? Again, that's about your own power, your own enthusiasm, your energy. The more you do the things I've been talking about in this session over time, the more you integrate those into you as the medium. Like mediumship is not something we show up on a Tuesday between 2 and 7 and do, and then just go about. Mediumship is a way of life. We need to think about mediumship as a way of life, and that includes meditation, that includes sitting in the power, but it also includes these things I'm talking about. These ways of thinking. And it also includes reading and information and knowledge. I'm a huge proponent of knowledge. Practice without knowledge is useless. You won't know what you're doing or why you're doing it. People come up to me with all these superstitious questions all the time, to the point now I'm actually thinking of writing a book of collecting all these superstitions and showing where they originated from, like the earthbound spirit. No, there's earthbound spirits. Homer made that up in the Iliad, which was fiction 2,000 years ago. That's, you know what I mean? So there's lots of this going on. So you won't need to, so I think reading reputable sources, and not just about mediumship, but I also always recommend Glyn Edwards for anybody interested. Not just about mediumship, but about spirituality. I have a tendency to kind of veer people towards Buddhist teachings, being a Buddhist, like Pema Chodron, Ram Dass even, just ways of just bringing and breathing and just embodying spirituality and spiritual awareness into your being yourself. So all the time, it's just a bit, how do you move through the world that will affect your mediumship? So the whole thing of like trying to snatch this and get this, and how do I do this and how do I do that? Just forget it. Become the medium, live the medium, breathe the mediumship, embody the story, embody the character, pay attention, understand your own spiritual nature, focus on your own spiritual growth, and then it becomes very natural, right? Because even if you want to get stellar evidence, guarantee the evidence you get by getting out of the way and letting them tell their story will hands down be more interesting for everybody than if you go at it going, I've got to get this, and this, and I've got to get a name, and I've got to get a passing condition and whatever, The other thing too about that is you got to ask, do I want to get all of those stellar details so I look good, or so that I'm actually giving authentic voice to the spirit? That's another question you got to ask yourself. You got to be honest about that. Right? Okay. So, and then sort of questions, like lots and lots of questions about doubt and confidence. A lot of it is this: you've got to be the medium. You've got to stop doing mediumship and be the medium. Okay. And so when it comes to things like doubt and confidence, a lot of that just comes with practice, just from doing it over and over, from doing the things I'm talking about. And then at some point, you just got to be willing to get it wrong. Because the minute you start going, oh, I'm afraid to say that all sounds stupid or that might be wrong, this, you have just, that's it. You've just locked it down. It's all over. Why? Because the ego is in it, and that's never helpful. Get it wrong. So what? I say all the time, you didn't bet the farm. So what if you get it wrong and someone says no? Oh, sorry. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Feel back into it. Go back and do it again. You know what I mean? This is what's going to happen if somebody says no. You fix it, or you don't fix it. You say, okay, I don't know what that's coming up. Let me move on. Right? So what? So the only way to get over the doubt is to stop. Get the ego out of the way, going, oh, I'm afraid to say that because it might be, or this whole, any of you do this whole chatter of like, oh, maybe that's me, or maybe that's them, or who gave me that, right? Nobody owning that. Come on, I know everybody does that. Yeah. At some point, you just work with the power, you work with the being, and over time, like you never arrive. There is no arriving in mediumship. There is no destination. It is just an ongoing journey, right? It's an ongoing journey. So don't think of when I do this, 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 and this, I've arrived. I'm telling you now, you're never going to arrive, right? But there's something nice in that as well, right? Because it's like, oh, well, then I just have to sort of do it moment to moment. Just get on with it. Just start living in the present with it, right? Like, so at some point, you just have to choose to shut up and say it. Did I get that from them or this? You just say it. So what if you get it wrong? But every time you go, maybe that's me. I have a friend who does me, every time she does medium, she's like, every single thing she says, I don't know if it's them or me. And it's like, just stop. It's like, there's so much clutter. You've put so much clutter into it. I don't even know what you're talking about. Just say it. Just say it. At some point, you just have to choose to say it. And so what if it's wrong? That's the only way you learn. Because you may find that if something is repeatedly wrong, either you're just with the wrong person, or you're with the wrong communicator, or they're thinking of the wrong person. That happens all the time. They're thinking of the wrong person. You have to fight with them to get the person back. You know? So you have to learn to trust your mediumship. And you just do it by just doing it and just saying it, you know? So like I had a grandmother the other day who I know had little shots of whiskey and smoked cigars. You know, now most people wouldn't say that. I've got your granny here and she's got like, I know she's got some bunions and I know that she would sneak off for a glass of whiskey and a cigar. Now most people wouldn't say that because you're like, oh, that'll probably be wrong. Just say it. If you're getting it, say it. If you've got this slightest inkling of it, say it. Because that's the only way you can keep opening up those pathways to get into the flow. When I said this sort of story to some of you before, and then I'll move on because we need to do a little practice. When I was doing my CSNU many years ago, I had to stand up in front of at the Barbanell Centre in England. Some of you from England will know where that is. Where is it? Stafford. And the place was full, 100 people in it, and I had to stand up. And some of the senior tutors from the college were there as well because they were assessing us, right? And I stand up and I see Paul Jacobs, who's super, any of you know Paul, super tough, right? The minute I stand up, he's sitting right in front. He's like sitting smack right in front in the middle of the church, spread out with his arms in the chair. And I'm like, oh God, you know, as if it wasn't nerve-wracking enough. And this woman came along and she's a stocky little woman and she had this hat on her with all this battered looking hat with all this tool on it, just dragging a bag of coal. Right? Now, you have to just say it. Doesn't matter, there's 100 people staring at you and all the senior tutors and people there scribbling and assessing you. You just say it, right? And of course, she did have the battered hat. Took it out apparently every occasion you had for 50 years, and she used to drag bags of coal along and then bring them to the kids, and the kids would have to drag them up the steps for her. So you just say it. You see what I'm saying? You got to get the ego, the doubt, the confidence, all of that is coming from your ego, not from the spirit and not from your spirit. It's all the ego. So when those things come up, you got to just recognize that's my ego trying to keep me safe, by not making me look stupid, and then always just makes a hash of everything, the ego, never helpful. So what do? You recognize it and you say it anyway. Right? So what? Right? We're not performing neurosurgery. We're not saving world hunger. We didn't bet the farm. We haven't chucked our pension into all of this. We are just making a statement. That's it. Right? Easy, right? And then we're like, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong, and I got this debt, and I got this con. Just say it. Who cares? Right? So that's that. So we're just going to get on and do a bit of practice, and we just want to sit in the power together for a few minutes, just because I just want you to sort of sit and do that. A couple of announcements. One, I already said, we've added the 4-week trance course on November, the end of November. I think I don't know when it is, second or third week, and first or second week in November. I'm not sure. It's on the website. So we're going to do that. So it's a really fun class, and I love teaching it. We do trance communication, trance speaking, trance healing, and trance writing. Or you can do all or none of them. You can do your own thing as well if you want. So it's a really experimental class. It's great fun. It's a really good class for helping you to sort of settle into the power and just enjoying it without having the pressure of having to sort of deal with somebody's beloved, in the spirit world. The other thing, of course, is the advanced mediumship advanced techniques, where we're going to be working with all these things I'm talking about today. Now, it's not a beginner's course, so you need to be able to place contacts, otherwise you'll be lost. So you'd need to have done some work already, or done one of my master classes, or done a class with me. But that starts, I don't know when that starts, next week or the week after. And until tomorrow, there's $25 off early birds, and then after tomorrow it goes up to $350 or something. So I'm only taking 10 places, and I think there's only 4 left. So if you want to do that, you want to hop along, check that out. It's on the website. I don't know what the website. I'll get you the website address. You've probably seen it already. And then a quick thing I want to just never find anything. Oh, here it is. So next year I'm actually, sorry, everybody, I'm not going to be teaching any beginner's mediumship anymore. Well, I don't want to say anything in absolutes, but what I'm going to be, here we go, there's the message for that. What I'm going to do next year is I really want to move into sort of more experimental work with mediumship, sort of building on these sort of advanced techniques, ideas, really sort of starting to bring mediumship and thinking about mediumship in a much more sophisticated way, and bringing, to really kind of come into we're incorporating storytelling, we're incorporating Zen, but we're also experimenting as well with the spirit world. We had great fun. Some of you did the ESP class. We had great fun with experiments in the ESP class. So I want to bring a lot of that into mediumship, just sort of, because I really kind of feel like we've made mediumship very small. And I really feel like it would be great to start really expanding that and sort of seeing just what kind of power and presence and potential there is in mediumship. Because as I said, it's not the spirit world that makes it small, it's us. So I really want to explore that and experiment with that next year. So for anyone who's starting out and feels like you're not ready for that, I'm just going to, we've got the master classes, the Foundations Masterclass, and then at some point in the next couple of months, we'll be adding an intermediate class, which is going to be partly the expansion class that's already there, but we're going to add to that. So we'll have 2 good foundational classes. And then what I'm going to try to do, I have to sort of saying all this to check my schedule. What I want to try to do then for people taking the beginners classes is just have a little circle once a month, which is not a teaching circle. It's just a moderated practice circle so that you can actually practice with people live. So that's how I'm going to do beginners mediumship next year. And I'm really just going to start focusing on more advanced and experimental techniques in mediumship, just for my own sake. A few people asked me about about the Celtic mystics when we did the mysticism. Oh, the other thing too is I'm supposed to be teaching at So everything's changing now because I've got my doctorate. So I'm teaching now One Spirit Seminary and NYU next year as well. So just sort of changing around the way I'm sort of teaching things. In Shift, when we did the Shift course on mystics this summer, a bunch of people asked if I could teach one on Celtic mystics. So Shift asked for the course. Haven't had time to write it, but I'm going to try to, now that the doctorate's out of the way, put together, send them over. I have to send them over some classes on the Celtic pantheon. So I don't know. So hopefully they'll offer it. So anyone who's interested, if and whenever that comes about, whenever I get around to it, it'll be on the website and we'll send it. We'll let you know. All right. So that's it, I think, for announcements. Any questions you want to pop in the chat before we get started on our little sitting in the power together practice? We'll send out the recording of this as well. I would say to everybody, listen to the recording of this if you have a chance, because I talked an awful lot and I talk quite fast, and so it might be actually worth sitting and listening again, because I'm sure there's stuff I said that you won't pick up. Our brains are not really designed to pick everything up. Oh, the Sunday Healing Circle. Yes, Joanne. Where's Joanne? Joanne Hamilton here runs the Sunday Healing Circle. So she just says she has it in her Zoom room. So she had the Zoom room link was posted in the newsletter this week. And Joanne has that posted on the Spirit Space Facebook group. Do you want to have the link handy, Joanne, if you want to share it for anybody who wants to go to the Healing Circle? Joanne sits every Sunday morning. Anybody who wants to come along, we just sit together in the Healing Circle. I think she plays either my pre-recorded trance mediumship guided or the regular trance healing things. So that's on Sundays. So you're all welcome to come along to that. There's also, I don't know, Joanne, do you have the link for the healing list? Because we have a healing list of people who send in requests for healing for themselves or loved ones. And that's on the healing list. And that's the list that Joanne has. You don't have to sit there and send healing to everyone individually. You just sort of can scan it, hold the intention to send healing to all of those people, because it's quite a lot of people. And I don't know when's the last time. They're supposed to stay on it for a year or something, so I have to go in and have this year has been just madness, so I have to catch up on lots of stuff. But there should be quite a lot of people, I do believe, on that list asking for healing for themselves and their loved one, and they could definitely use your help. So anybody who's interested in healing, it's just nice also to sit in the presence and the power, the healing power, on a Sunday morning. It's a nice way to start your Sundays. The replay of this, it'll be sent out by email Monday or Tuesday, so you can have a listen to that. But like I said, anybody who wants to do the advanced mediumship course, I think there's only 4 places left, and the $25 off the early bird, it's only till tomorrow. So if you want to do that, check that out after class, and then and that's it. Any more? Have you got that, Joanne, for everybody? No? So Tricia, in the Essence class, is there much of a difference between the class on demand, communicate with your loved ones, versus the expansion class? Yes, they're completely different. The Eternal Bonds class is completely geared towards you learning to communicate, not communicate, but continue relationships with your own loved ones, which is a very different thing from mediumship, where you're mediating conversations with. You still need the same sensitivity, but it's a very, very different mechanism, very, very different dynamic. So if you're looking to develop mediumship, which is work with other people to help offer, help and joy and comfort and healing for other people, then you want to do mediumship. If you're interested in just dispensing with myths and understanding how you relate to your own loved ones in the spirit world, then the course to do for that would be Eternal Bonds. We're actually going to be doing a live event on Eternal Bonds with Humanities and the Humanities team, because they offer my Eternal Bonds course on their platform as well. And we're going to be doing a live event for that on November 6th, and we'll stick that into the November newsletter as well. So if any of you want to come to that, you can come. They're hosting it. I'm just showing up, so I don't really know what it's going to be like. But yeah, if you want to work on your own loved ones, do the Eternal Bonds. And if you want to develop mediumship, do foundations and expansion. Expansion is going to be repackaged, re-released as a new course with more additional material shortly. So I don't know what the new name is going to be yet, but those are really good foundational courses. And then I'll be teaching the more advanced and experimental stuff, which you can't really teach that in on-demand classes. Right. All the information goes out in newsletters. So if you're on my news mailing list, you'll see it all in newsletters. It gets posted in Spirits. It gets posted on social media and goes out in emails, and it'll be all posted in the on the Spirit Space Facebook group as well if you're in that. And it'll be in the newsletter, as I said. Anything else? Is it a good idea to sit for a relative? Not really, because you know them. You know the people. You're better off sitting for strangers. Because also, if you're sitting for strangers, you know that everything you get is not coming from you.
Okay.
Right? But if you're sitting with a relative and you've got your aunt, you won't know, oh, was that me or my aunt? Right? So the best thing to do is sit with people you don't know better. You can also go into the Spirit Space Facebook group if you're in the Facebook group and just post. There's like chats there to post for people to practice with you if you want. Forgotten everything else?
No.
Any more questions here? Sometimes being too busy in life, I don't get time to sit in the power. Does that affect the ability to connect to the spirit world? Absolutely. You really do have to. The only way to do mediumship is to make a commitment. You really need to sit in the power, but it's not just sitting in the power, it's doing all of these other things. You have to start incorporating being the medium into your life. You've just got to be the medium, not like, oh, when I've got 15 minutes, I'll do mediumship and I've got this. Mediumship is a way of being, right? It's like being an artist. You don't just do art when when you feel like doing art. You are an artist, right? It's the way you see everything, you approach it, the way you live, the way you approach life, the way you engage with life. So you need to engage with life with these kinds of qualities, with these ways of being. Storytelling, embodying, so spiritual growth, presence, meditation practices. But meditation practice doesn't have to be sitting on your cushion. If you go to in the audio recorded things on my website, there's like the open awareness practice that I learned from Mingyur Rinpoche, and that's beautiful. And you can do that anytime. You can do that driving your car, But yeah, you need to do sitting in the power, because that's the only way you're building presence in your mediumship and you're building that stand in your mediumship. So if you want to do it, you just need to commit to that, and something else needs to get crossed off the list. Preferably not your youngest child, but something needs to get crossed off the list. Right? What else? So my own imagination comes in again. Practice, sitting in the power, embodying mediumship, just doing the work, just saying it. You just got to do it. There's no way to be able. You just have to do it. It's practice, right? Practice. I will say, if you close your eyes, there's a very good chance your imagination will come in. It's better to keep your eyes open, softly focused. The minute you close your eyes, your mind immediately thinks, oh, this is imagination time or dream time. Keep your eyes open, keep your focus soft is the best way to go about it, right? Then your mind knows you're awake. This isn't time for fancy, right? That's everything. I think that's it. So, Margaret, I'm not teaching beginner's mediumship again. I'm only going to be teaching mediumship through the on-demand classes that are already on the website. And then what I will do is probably try to add in practice circle at least once a month, if not twice a month. It depends on my schedule. The practice circle is just me moderating the practice. It is not a teaching circle. The teaching will come from the on-demand classes, the master classes. I don't know where Margaret is. Where's Margaret? She's gone. No, fast answer the question. Margaret's not even here anymore. Oh, there's Margaret there. Sorry, Margaret. Yeah. So just check out the master classes. The circle will be gallery. Yeah. It'll be all in the group, not one-to-one, because I can't moderate if you're in breakout rooms. You know, can't see what's going on. All right, good. Joanne, Victoria's asking for the link for the. It's in the newsletter, Victoria. Did you get the newsletter this month, last week, a few days ago, this week, whenever it was in there. It's in there every week, every month. And well, I don't think you're in the Facebook group, but it's in the newsletter. Send it out every month in the newsletter. All right. Okay, everyone ready? Shall we just sit for a few minutes? So we don't have a lot of time now. Did nobody had no masterclass people with masterclass questions, right? No. Okay. So it's just that anyone doing masterclasses, because you don't have interaction with me, what I try to do is at the end of these gatherings is just leave 15 minutes just for people with questions if you're doing a masterclass to ask me about the course you're doing. So, right, let me see. Let's get a few tunes here. Did you like the grateful thing? It's not the best thing to sit for. Do you want to try sitting with the grateful, the music that was playing when you came in? It's a bit disruptive. We're doing we'll just do it. We're doing not that. Certainly won't be smoke coming out of your ears if we play that. Where is going on here? Don't know where everything's disappeared. And we'll do the bowls. How about we do the bowls? Okay. Can you hear that? Okay. So we're just going to sit for about 10 minutes just together. So what I would say is the key to this. Joanne just put the healing. Did you just put that in? Oh, Kat, put the healing. Just put the Zoom link in for the healing circle there. So if anyone wants to go. Right. So what I would say, what's really key in this and what's really key in mediumship in general is surrender. Surrender, surrender, surrender. If you find that you're reaching out with your mind to try to snatch something, you are stepping out of the flow, right? So this is all about surrender. The minute you feel the mind coming into it, what we really want to be able to do is recognize the mind is interfering, take a breath, let the thought go, come back to the breath. So what we really want to do is to really start to sink in and surrender to the power of our inner spirit and let all of our interaction come from there, all right? Surrender, surrender. You can even say that to yourself over and over. Surrender, surrender. Remember, words have power. All right. So what you can do also in this practice, since it's a short practice, we're sitting together, is you can, if you want, invite a loved one to sit with you, or a number of loved ones to sit with you, or your guides to sit with you, but do not reach out for information. We're just inviting them in to sit with you in the power. Right? So you may feel their presence, you may not, but you can send out the invitation, but then let it go. Don't be sort of saying, you know, to your dear old dad, give us the lottery numbers, would you? You know, just sort of sitting there in the power, and as if you're all sitting in a sacred circle silently together. All right? So feel free to invite guides or loved ones, but that's all we're doing. Just sitting and surrendering together to the power and the presence. So just taking a breath, getting yourself settled. This is just going to be a short practice. Just taking a breath, bringing your awareness to the simple act of breathing. Just allowing the breath bring you into the moment, bring you into the present. Should the mind start to wander, just allow those thoughts go, and you allow them go by simply choosing to move your focus away from the thought and back to the breath. The simple act of breathing. Just settling now into the chair wherever you're sitting, allowing body awareness to fall away, allowing the tension to be released from your physical form, and allowing the chair to hold you like a big, safe, comfortable hand. Just recognizing as you scan the body, noticing where there is any muscle tension. Just taking a breath into that place and just allowing yourself sit on the chair like a limp rag doll. And bringing your attention very gently to your heart center. And there's either sensing or seeing the warmth, the image of a bright white light, a spark of light that is emanating from the heart of you. And on the breath, just noticing this light, just aware that this light is growing brighter and wider so that it begins to flow throughout your entire body, filling you with light or filling you with warmth, and then flowing out beyond your physical form, filling the room around you so that all physicality dissolves before the light. All illusion falls away to the light of the truth. Stepping out of the body now and allowing the spirit to soar, to fly, to float through this white space, and beyond the room, beyond the light that fills this room, out into the street, to the city, and before you all physicality, all illusion falls away before the light of the spirit, so that you are surrounded by the bright white light or the warmth of the spirit of all that is, floating up, flowing with ease, becoming aware that the light of the spirit extends beyond you, beyond all known reality, to all dimensions and through all time. This is the light of the One, of the Divine, of the Tao. And as you continue to float and soar in this space, you become one with this light, the light of all, so that you and the One, you and the Divine become one, without beginning and without end. And just surrendering to the nuance, to the space, to the energy, to the sensations here. Surrender and be. Surrender and receive. the energy of all beings who have ever been or will come to be exist in harmony in this space. And very gently sending out the little thought, the invitation to your guides or your loved ones to simply join you to be in this space, together gathered in humility and in honor of the sacredness of our unity and all that is. Surrender to be, surrender to receive. Open heart and quiet mind, finding the joy and harmony in presence and stillness, compassion and love. Now, very gently sending out gratitude for those guides and loved ones who joined you here. Gratitude for the power of the Spirit of the One that welcomes you home to this place from which you came and to which you will return. Now, very gently beginning to turn your awareness to your physical form that lies back on that chair, making your way back down through this space towards the body, settling back into the body now, beginning to feel your weight on the world, the weight of gravity, the sounds and smells around you, beginning to make small movements with fingers and toes, stretching back into this temporary physical form, back into this world. Taking a deep breath and exhaling. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, everyone come back. Didn't leave anyone behind partying with relatives. No, everyone's here. Beautiful. Victoria, what's the frequency of the tones? No, I don't recommend any particular frequency, different frequencies. Like I have a bunch of different ohms and a bunch of different things. And some days one is beautiful and the next day it can be really annoying. And it just depends where you are at on a given day. So I recommend, if you want, try a bunch of different ohms and frequencies or music. You probably find something really helps you settle one day and doesn't another day. Just depends on where you're at on any given day. It's always changing. All right. Anyone else? Any questions before we go? No? Did you all enjoy that? Did you feel a sense of the presence? Were you able to feel a sense of the presence? It can be very, very nuanced of loved ones without going chasing them, trying to catch them and shake some information out of them. Yeah, you did. Beautiful. All right, lovely. Right, so that's it, folks. I don't know what we're doing next time. Don't forget to check out the advanced course. Like I said, there's only 4 places left, and the early bird is still tomorrow. And check out the trance class as well if you want. I think our next gathering will probably be doing some trance work, so that might be interesting as well. And then don't forget, the 7th of November, we'll be doing the Eternal Bonds with Humanity stream, so keep an eye out in the newsletter for that. We'll get the recording here posted in Spirit Space and out to you in an email at some point in the next day or two, and then it will also be in the next newsletter too, so should happen upon the recording somewhere there. How many weeks will it be? How many weeks will it be? The trance course, 4 weeks, because coming up on Christmas. All right, beautiful. All right, so lovely. So take care, everyone, and it was lovely to see you all, and hopefully I will see you all again soon. Don't forget to go to the healing class, healing circle on Sunday. Okay, bye-bye.